Okay, AJ is a 2004 environmental science graduate of HSU. After managing the Arcata branch of Bank of America in 2014, he joined Umpqua Bank as a manager, and by 2018 was the community manager overseeing the Garberville, Fortuna, Arcata, and McKinleyville locations. They provide wonderful service, by the way. I've worked with AJ, and they do a great job in trying to address your needs. He served as the 2019-20 president of the Rotary Club of Arcata Sunrise, and now has time to do an OLLI presentation because his term is over. So we're happy to have you here, AJ, and we look forward to your talk.
Thank you, Jane. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to get in front of this audience. I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully you guys can see. Yeah, after years in the industry, I've definitely seen some patterns develop around the use of technology. It's definitely been very convenient to be able to access your activity through a computer and now on your mobile phone. Even make deposits now. And a lot of customers are getting into being able to transfer money through cash apps. And so I think in the intro, there was you alluded to cash eventually becoming obsolete, which I find very difficult to see in my lifetime, but it's definitely going in that direction with the adoption of technology. And so my connection to technology, like there's so much to learn. I've used it to like learn about music and tile on my floor, and I mean it's all accessible at your fingertips. But where I do want to spend a good amount of my time when it comes to financial literacy itself is how you can protect yourself, because through the adoption of these different technologies, there is the potential for a lot of liability or exposure. And so what I want to try to help identify are some ways that you can enjoy this technology, but also be safe and protect yourself, protect your information, protect your funds, because this convenience can come with a price if you don't use it appropriately. And so, let's see here. I'm gonna advance my notes here. I guess the advent of the debit card actually took place at the very beginning of my career, and it definitely took a lot of work to create some interest and buy-in and being able to use that technology. And I feel like that's eventually going to be the same with the ability of transferring funds and the adoption of using even just maybe your mobile phone to make purchases and conduct business. And so the time it takes, and then this will be this following slide here, to eventually go in that direction is painstaking. It definitely takes a little bit of time. You could see cash is just slowly, incrementally, year over year, being less used. And then the blue and the yellow, which are debit and credit cards, are seeing increasing usage. I mean, it's I guess easy to understand why. I mean, carrying a bunch of cash isn't very convenient. A card is very convenient to carry and easy to use. The magnetic stripe on the card has been some technology that's been around since I think the beginning of the computer. Just some ones and zeros on a card, and the development of the chip technology has helped prevent some fraud. Year over year, as these technologies get incorporated into the devices that we use, more specifically the mobile phone, are we seeing increased usage when it comes to technology. So since 2000, checks were the preferred access device for paying bills and accessing your funds. And You could see in 2007, 2008, around the time of the financial crisis, there was a flip, and my impression that checks, which contain a lot of personal information up to including your account number, make it very easy for you to provide something that makes you susceptible to fraudsters out there. And debit cards being a device that can be easily replaced if in the event there is fraud, offers that peace of mind and protection to prevent unauthorized activity and to make it still convenient to be able to access your account. If your account number was compromised, it takes a lot of work to change your account number, and then if you have direct deposit or automatic payments, that's just that much more work to try to fix things. But with debit cards and credit cards, it's definitely become a lot more easy. But they also have their pitfalls. So, and then specifically, a lot of habits have grow when it comes to online activity. So I think through promotions and the ease of access and the availability of whatever product that you're looking for being available online and then being sent directly to your door, it's understandable for the consumers to go in that direction. This NPR Marist poll has 92% of Americans buying things online, one thing or another, but you could see still a majority, this gray section here, still I guess implies a lot of people like to do things in person. COVID itself has had an impact on all these spending habits as well. I think in 2020, it would be interesting to see what the stats look like when it comes to e-commerce, because going out and about in the community this year specifically is a threat to your health and the health of your significant others. And we've seen like an increase in a lot of not just online sales, but even local restaurants leveraging DoorDash and some of those other online vehicles to get things delivered directly to your door to minimize your interaction with the outside world or the public, just to come from a safety standpoint. And then this is something that I've begun talking about more and more. A lot of customers, when they go to the store, I mean, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, got nervous about, I guess, interacting with people. And then, I mean, you got to sanitize and mask up and touch things. And it just created a sense of priority in how you want to interact at the grocery store. And so these near field communication technology or contactless payments, that's what NFC is, has been adopted as a way to, I mean, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with how that works, but you are able to put your credit card specifically on your phone and program it so that when you're at that terminal, you don't have to touch the terminal, it just directly charges your card. There's some security that I'll talk about later on that's built into that, but it definitely makes the transaction a little bit quicker, and it keeps a record or sends you a record. So unless you really want that itemized receipt at the grocery store, you can walk away with one less thing in your pocket. But it also offers that safety and security that most are looking for when it comes to using credit cards. These technologies use what they call tokenization. So the information that's provided to the merchant is not your actual original credit card information. It's a specific language that communicates with their terminal that authorizes the transaction, but then the merchant never really gets your credit card information. And from a security standpoint, where I find value is, I mean, I've seen notifications when specific merchant companies are breached, and those customers I have to reach out to and let them know and let them know that the new card's on its way. And using this technology could prevent that from happening, because then that merchant can never get breached. I am putting a lot of faith. I'm a fan of, I have an iPhone, so I am putting a lot of faith in Apple Pay in hopes that they don't get compromised. But I have narrowed it to one so that if there is a degree of compromise, then I can kind of know where it's coming from. But this type of technology is definitely seeing an increase as well. Jane, you got a question?
Yeah, I have about 3 questions. Back several slides, you were going through the categories of payment options, credit cards, debit cards, etc. And then there was back further, there was a category called other. And I wondered what other was. That, the red. What's other?
Well, when it comes to, I guess, the variety of types of transactions, I mean, they are limited. So electronic, I'm going to narrow down to ACH, and like being able to use routing numbers and account numbers to send funds. I mean, I think other could open it up to the non-standard, but so that would most likely include perhaps the cryptocurrency or just other
Like wire transfer, things
conventional.
like that.
I would say wire transfers fall within electronic, but that's possible too. It's just a small fraction of the transactions or usage that is out there.
Okay, my other question, well, I have 2. Credit cards give you the ability to stop a transaction and reverse it. Do credit cards have those protections or debit cards have those protections as well? Or are you stuck?
So I will get into this a little more because debit cards access the cash that's in your account. It is disputable, but it can take some time for an investigation to take place. So in the meantime, if you have those funds earmarked for your rent or your bills, then until that investigation is finished, you're kind of without that cash. And so later in the presentation, I'll definitely talk about the difference between credit and debit.
And do we have companies here that are using the NFC?
We do.
Walmart?
It is store specific, and so you can go to particular stores themselves, but I mean, I've gone to Wildberries. I've gone to smaller restaurants. The Square, most of the merchant terminals are adapting towards this near field communication technology. And they're creating the terminals that allow the use. And so I've definitely used it. I've forgotten my wallet sometimes, and I've made it to the co-op and got to the grocery, got to the checkout stand, and I have my stack of groceries, and I happen to have my phone. I was lucky to be able to still make my purchase and not have my wallet. So
I've noticed at craft fairs often they're using Square.
they are, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, remote access has definitely become quite a bit easier with the mobile phones. It's, I mean, we use it as Rotary. All of our fundraisers definitely helps with like raffle sales, etc.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
No, there's no other questions in the chat right now.
Okay, I'll definitely go into more depth around this technology. And the cash transfer services is actually probably the scariest of them for me, just because as a banker, because there are these brands that tie them to, I guess, one specifically in the top right corner is Facebook, Facebook Pay, and they tie it into Messenger. And so with Facebook, you have this illusion that like you know who you're working with because you see where they're from and their face, and there's I guess some engagement involved with getting to know who this person is. And so I've had experiences through the bank where customers have purchased something, and similar to what's happened in the past with like Craigslist scams and maybe even local folks not, I guess, following through with their commitments. This just opens it up to people across the country, and you would really like a product, and they could weave in this really intricate story and commit to shipping it to you a certain way, and you send them money through the app, and if they don't send you a product, you don't really have recourse. Like what Facebook does is they offer this cash transfer service, and they connect it to your debit or credit card. And if you try to dispute that transaction, you're not really going to win, because the service that Facebook offered is the transferring of the service and not actually protecting you from a purchase. They do have a specific marketplace where you can get that protection, but if you're not really aware, and let's say your merchant takes you into the messaging app, then starts just talking to you about their product, and then through that app they can actually ask for money, like similar to what Venmo and Zelle do. You can like request money from someone, and if you follow through and pay them, that money is gone and there's no way to get that money back. And so these services, while very convenient, and my recommendation is always just to use this with the people you have, I don't know, people you know, essentially people you know and trust, like friends and family. I would actually exclusively use it with just friends and family instead of looking to use it with strangers. I mean, Venmo is something I've worked out with our Rotary Club since we can't see each other, to make donations. But I mean, I'm going to trust my club versus someone that I've met either online or even through some local classifieds, because I want to make sure that when I do send that money, that I'm not worried about having to work on getting it back. But more to come on the cash transfer services. So where I want to take this is fraud statistics. As of late, you could see that fraud is, I mean, it's been steady, but it's recently been on the rise, and specifically identity theft. I mean, identity theft, it comes in many forms, and it's really, I mean, it can really evolve just depending on the method that's being used to steal your identity, essentially. But in a lot of cases, what we're seeing is that the majority of the fraud is credit card fraud, where someone is able to get your personal information and apply for credit behind your back. But you can see, of all the reporting, there's so many different ways that unfortunately people fall susceptible to. With the spike in reporting, and then specifically during like downturns in the economy, is when we see an increase in potential fraud, because I think individuals just get a little more desperate depending on their situation, and when they hear a good story and they see an opportunity, they feel like it's something that might help them, it always ends up being that it's too good to be true. So the top three categories of identity theft, of fraud, or identity theft, imposter scams, and then telephone and mobile services, where of the 1.7 million fraud reports, 23% of those fraud reports report a loss at a median of $320. And that works out to be 1.9 billion in total fraud cases. And this is for 2019. So where we're seeing those increases, like I said, is that credit card fraud and identity theft, just other general identity theft, which is, oops, swipe of my mouse, which is just through impersonating you and then getting your government document, somehow replicating your government documentation, which is this teal indicator. But with these three forms of identity theft, somehow people are able to get your personal information, or find ways to impersonate you to be able to get access to your money, or to I think in some cases we have vacation rentals, or it runs the gamut. So it, let's see. So it all depends on how you engage with technology that can affect how you can prevent this type of fraud from taking place. So an imposter scam, some really recent examples I've seen are specifically around tax time. The IRS will call you and tell you you're late on your taxes, threaten to call the police, create some false sense of urgency, and somehow manage to get access to either your information, because they need to verify that you're you, so they'll use that to get your social security number or date of birth, or other personal information. And that's one way that they can fool you into providing your data to someone. An imposter scam can also be, and I've seen this at the bank, and we've been able to thwart some of these, is a grandson calling you from outside of the country and telling you that they're in some kind of trouble or they need cash to escape a situation that they're in, and you'll come to the bank and send them money to help them, and unfortunately it's a fraudster on the other end. A really common one now are tech support scams, where you'll get a pop-up on your computer, or perhaps an email, an urgent email that will give a fraudster, will give you the impression that this fraudster is trying to help you, which then in turn allows you to provide this access to your computer to this imposter. And in the meantime, while they're perhaps talking to you about what they're doing, they're downloading either downloading malware onto your computer to track your keystrokes, or uploading any personal information they might find, like access to your bank accounts. Most recently, this year specifically, we've seen IRS calls to customers, letting customers know about their stimulus check, and facilitate access, quicker access to their stimulus check. They'll ask for, again, personal information or bank account information, and then leverage that to get access to your current bank account, or establish credit or bank accounts behind your back. So specifically, this year, we're seeing 88% increase in credit card new account fraud, and this is from the Federal Trade Commission website. One thing I wanted to explore is there are some patterns when it comes to age and fraud loss. You could see that for the 20-somethings, their median loss is $250, and they tend to be more susceptible to online shopping scams or imposter scams, and their preferred payment method are those cash apps, where they send money via Venmo or some of those other applications. The 40-somethings, median loss is $225, and that definitely happens less than the younger folks. Are also seeing losses through online shopping, and I guess business imposters, and then some travel or vacation scams where, and I'm getting these calls on my cell phone pretty often about all these deals. I'm not sure how they get my phone information or know like what age group I'm in, but somehow I am getting quite a few of these from out of the area, and then their preferred payment method are through credit cards. You'll start seeing a pattern. The 60-somethings, median loss is $400, are also susceptible to online shopping scams, and also business imposters, but more are seeing more of the tech support scams with people from fake Microsoft or fake Apple trying to access their computers. And I mean, I've seen 2 or 3 instances this year of customers' computers getting compromised, and it takes quite a bit of work to try to rectify that situation. And from the bank's perspective, you have to end up taking your computer to a local tech company, and they have to certify that it's been cleaned before we can re-enable accessing your account online. But and then the 80 plus, while it does happen quite a bit less, they have the largest median loss at 1,250. Their preferred payment methods are credit cards, but their preferred contact methods are the phone. It's an interesting. It's interesting that they're also falling prey to online shopping, but the sweepstakes and lotteries tend to be how they fall susceptible. I've seen customers who it's interesting how they work it out in their minds, but I've seen them like write lots of checks in the attempt to win sweepstakes or prizes, and somehow expect that it's a legitimate lottery that they're entering into, but unfortunately fall prey to a scam. There's what I've also seen is unfortunately marketing that's directed towards like implying that a person is past due. An example would be like getting a magazine subscription and constantly referring to renewing it, which I feel like might add some degree of confusion that is preyed upon, which then people end up continuing to pay that bill. That's not really due. It's just it's encouraging to renew your subscription. But that style of marketing, I have an example of a customer who's I guess next of kin, because that individual is no longer with us, but they're receiving, like, they've received a magazine subscription for 8 years after someone's passed away, just because they've paid so much into that subscription that it's just lasted for so long. And so there's just a different type of I think attempt in leveraging that trust that you can and then take advantage of confusing situations to really do some damage. But that is what's out there, unfortunately. So let's talk about how the identity thieves get your information. Or actually, do we have any questions about the statistics so far?
I see just one question, and I believe you answered it, was how safe is PayPal and have they been hacked? I think you might have talked about that.
Yeah, I'll definitely go into some data breaches here. So data breaches are ways that fraudsters do get your information, but I'll start with some basic ones. So, I mean, losing your wallet is pretty straightforward. So, I mean, try to just carry what you need and not bring everything with you when it comes to, and I know that can be difficult because you never know when you need something, but I've managed to just minimize what I carry around to just 3 cards. And if I know I'm going to go somewhere where I need a particular type of card or some information, then I'll make an effort to bring that with me, so that if I leave something behind, that I don't end up being susceptible to someone having my information. I mean, I lock my social security card up, so I don't see why there's any value in carrying that with me, especially since I haven't memorized, but some people do. And I imagine a wallet is maybe the only safe place that you know of to keep your stuff. But I think opening it up to other ways to do that would save you a lot of hassle from down the road. And then a lot of card issuers allow you to turn off your lost card. So waiting till that time happens might be a little too late, because there might be a learning curve in figuring out how to do that. So I definitely recommend figuring out how to turn off your card especially the ones that you carry around the most, so that if you do lose it, it can be a quick thing to do. Some apps require that you register your card, which means you have to have the card with you. And if it's lost, then you might not have that as an option to turn them off. I mean, keeping passwords is a huge topic because I don't have the bandwidth to remember all the things that all the websites that I've been to, or all the passwords that I have to remember. So, I mean, my phone is password protected, or uses fingerprint or face, and then I also have within it another document that's also password protected. So it takes 2 passwords to get into a document that I keep that has a list of all the websites I go to and passwords. But there are also services that can facilitate that for you. I'm sure at a cost, but one way or another, it's definitely not a good idea to have it. Well, I mean, I guess if you have it locked up in a safe in your home, that's another good option. But having it written down where someone could get that could really make it make you susceptible.
There's a couple other questions now, AJ. One is the most common government fraud the IRS, and what are some of the others?
So IRS, there was a graph back here. So employment or tax related fraud isn't one of the highest, but it is also on the increase. I mean, all these are tied to someone being able to impersonate you, whether they're doing your taxes on your behalf and getting your refund. Oops. Whether they're taking out loans on your behalf and getting the proceeds, whether they're applying for government benefits on your behalf and getting those benefits. And then credit cards end up just being the easiest. There's so many companies. They're so eager to send you a card that it can be easy to just apply for a card, get it, use it, and then by the time you notice, because it will hit your credit report, and you'll see if you use the service appropriately, you can get notified that a new account was opened. That'll allow you to take some action to stop the transactions from happening. But by then, I'm sure some money has been spent.
And then one other question says, so many places have asked for social security numbers in the past. Aren't they really easily found anyway?
They are. I do have a, let's see. I'm going to jump ahead here. So this is just a small example, but the first 3 numbers of your social security number are based on where you applied for that social security number. So I think for the longest time, the last 4 of your social security number was apparent on your tax returns, on loan documents, on your pay stubs. And if they can figure out where you're from or where you were born and which office you used to apply for a social security number, they can really significantly narrow down the first 3 numbers of your social security number. So gaining the middle 2, I think with some help from technology could definitely make getting your number a little easier. I mean, you have to have the computing background to be able to leverage that type of technology. And I think a lot of times what ends up happening is it's easiest if they break into your mailbox or break into your car or break into your home and get that information directly and then sell it on the dark web. But it used to be way more prevalent on documents. I remember going to college and it being really easy to access on my transcripts, but I mean, it's becoming less and less. And it wasn't until 2011 did they start changing the Social Security assignment process to be more random instead of using the Social Security origin office to determine your Social Security number. Are there other questions?
No, that's all I see right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So mailbox theft, I mentioned just now, and I don't know if you know, but the post office lets you get an email with images of items that you can be expected to receive. And it's really easy to sign up for. It also lets you order stamps, etc. But informed delivery is a way that you can know what kind of mail you're expecting, and you can get it via email first. And then that probably is most important if you have a mailbox that is open and available to anybody who walks by. It is best if you can somehow secure your mailbox, either with a key or something, so that it's easy to for the mail carrier to drop and then for you to easily access, because you do want to retrieve it promptly. And then the other concern would be redirecting your mail. And a lot of impersonators can call into a variety, your bank, your cell phone company, and if they have enough information to impersonate you, they can change your mailing address and then get your information that way. And recommendation would be to go paperless where you can. I know it's helpful for many to have a tangible paper object to review and balance your checkbook, or the physical bill helps with as a reminder to ensure those bills get paid. But there are other ways to set those reminders so that you can stay on top of managing your finances and then still protect yourself. There's that clear environmental benefit, but preventing access would be the best way to prevent people from getting your information.
So does that mean that the USPS has a record of all the mail we receive?
They do. I mean, it goes through all their scanners, anyways, and sorters, and yeah, if you go to their website and then typed in inform or look for informed delivery, you'll be able to get that in your email inbox.
Wow, thank you.
Do you know for how long they keep that record?
I don't. I mean, it's sent to you via email, so I'm sure it would, on the day that it's being sent, it's something that's in your inbox. So however long you want to keep that in your email. But yeah, you have to sign up for it first, and then
You do have to sign up for it.
you do.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Absolutely. I mean, public Wi-Fi, I think it's obvious since it's public that if you have someone savvy nearby using the same network, they would be able to access your device. So I mean, like a lot of mobile devices have Wi-Fi automatically enabled. And I mean, if you're on your home Wi-Fi network with the password, I think it's makes sense to have that turned on. But when you go out into the public, it's an easy click to just turn off your the Wi-Fi feature so that it doesn't automatically join any of the networks that are out there, which then can make you less susceptible to those virtual networks. And then I mean, VPN or virtual private network services you can pay for, and it encrypts your access on these public Wi-Fi so that you're now on in an encrypted state so that people can't access your information. But they've made it a little easier to get those services, but it does come with and sometimes with the fee. But you need, I think that it has to accompany, I think, some degree of savviness to know when it's turned on and when you're clear to be able to use the Wi-Fi before that VPN is turned on. I think where people are most susceptible are when they're traveling, like in airports. There's a lot of downtime, so a lot of folks end up on their devices addressing things that's important to them. Banking can come up when you're on those networks. So I think it's important to not be on public Wi-Fi when you're trying to do finance sensitive things or information sensitive things like registering or banking. Building a new profile while you're on a Wi-Fi network should be reserved for when you're on a password protected network. something that's been in news recently, and I've seen are when you walk through airports, they now have these terminals or these stations where you can charge your phone, and sometimes individuals will attach a device to these charging stations, and that device could end up trying to get the information from your phone. So just be aware and look for these potential implants that are on the charging stations to avoid plugging into inadvertently plugging in and providing your information to a nearby fraudster. Data breaches have been really common as of recent. So I think it would be safe to assume that your data has been compromised. The Equifax breach that took place a couple of years ago, I was notified that my information was breached. And so it's just created some vigilance around monitoring my credit. I mean, it takes so much work to build my credit history, paying my bills on time, and monitoring my activity. And so most major credit card companies now offer the ability to view your score every month. I'm getting emails regarding my credit score as well, just so that I can have multiple opportunities to take a look and see what my score is doing. I mean, I'm not always in the market of applying for credit, but it's good to know that it's going in the right direction. But more importantly, what I'm looking for are variances. Most of these entities will also notify you if a new account's been opened. There are some of these are functions you can just turn on and then receive text or email notifications, and that's especially helpful if, especially since I know my information's been breached, that if a new account's been opened, that I can get a notification. I did refinance my mortgage just recently, and I got notified that my credit score changed and a new account was open. So I know it works, that if loans are taken out in my name, that I have a degree of, I'm aware that these things are happening. So just some examples of the top 10 data breaches. I mean, if you don't feel like you've been compromised with these numbers, it's hard to imagine that it didn't happen. But with if you had a Yahoo account in 2013 and they didn't learn about the breach until 2016, over 3 billion people were affected there. There are a lot of Facebook users out there, and 540 million people were affected. Facebook, Yahoo was hit twice. Friend Finder, I feel like I've seen a lot of customers use this to find people they have lost connection with, and I mean, 412 million there. The Equifax in 2017 affected 143 million people. I mean, all of these breaches are in the millions. It's just a high likelihood that information has been compromised. Heartland Payment System is a merchant service company, and the card information, fortunately, can be so credit cards can be easily be replaced. So while physical card numbers, I mean, no one ever wants to lose that information. Just good to know that it's not personal information where they can do more damage with it.
There's a quick question about freezing credit records, like at Experian, etc.
Yeah, you can go to each of the credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, and request to freeze your credit report. You have to prove your identity, which is using their credit bureau info to ID yourself. But if you've been affected by some of these breaches, like in the example with Equifax, they'll not charge you for being able to control your credit in that way. But it is fairly easy to do and then undo if you are applying for credit when you, especially now since a lot of people are taking advantage of the refinance rates now, but you're going to unfreeze it, allow the credit pull, and then freeze it back up so you can have that peace of mind that you're protecting your credit and your credit score. SIM card swap is interesting, and I've only had to do that when I've, I guess, upgraded phones. So I didn't really think about this technology until I did that, but it is possible. I've heard examples of fraudsters calling in and impersonating someone and getting a new SIM card sent out, and on that SIM card, your cell phone information. Now with the two-factor authentication, where when you are logging into whatever website and you're waiting for a security code text, with that SIM card, they can now access your account information if they have the right information, like password, etc. But it kind of allows people to get past that two-step authentication. So protecting your SIM card and your cellular phone relationship is also just as important, so that that two-factor authentication can't get compromised, especially since so many companies are using it now to protect access to your finances, insurance, etc.
And then there's a question going back to the public Wi-Fi. It says, what if you're using mobile data? Is that secure or not secure?
It's not on a local network, and so that's communicating directly with the larger mobile companies. I feel like any of that information being transmitted over the airways without encryption has that potential to be compromised, but this is where we're going to rely on the telecom companies, Verizon, AT&T, to ensure that their encryption's in place to protect your information as it's transmitted. But like we've learned with all the data breaches, anything can potentially be compromised. So it's not as open as a Wi-Fi network, which doesn't require any passwords, and it's a small localized device that where your information is being transmitted, as opposed to the larger network of so like a local Verizon transmitter, and then using their encryption to transmit your information. So. I would say nothing's really safe. And then phishing or spoofing. So phishing is when someone calls you or emails you and they try to get you to disclose your personal information, and then they do their best to make it official looking. I have an example of one from Microsoft, and an attachment could be a virus, a fake email address, which would be a clue that who you're working with isn't legitimate. A lot of times they disguise this by renaming it with a contact name, and by hovering over it, you get the official address. Not clicking on it, just hovering it will provide that information that might help you discover whether or not it's a fraudulent email. Generic addresses, poor grammar, fake sense of urgency, and then other links where you can also hover and take a look at the URL that sends you to fake or bad links, are all clues into figuring out whether or not what you're being sent is real. So these are some ways that you can avoid and learn how to determine whether or not an email is legitimate. The company does such a, they're so interesting in how they test us by, we have an internal phishing department that reviews phishing emails, but they send us their own version of a phishing scam to test us and test our abilities to recognize phishing scams. And I feel like that'd be a interesting thing to send out to our customers. I know we wouldn't want to fool anybody or shame anybody, but I think that practice of looking at these emails and learning what to look for, and then treating it as that, a learning opportunity, as opposed to we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or anything, but just to give someone the ability to see these without like specific consequences of actually losing your information would be I think a good practice. I don't know what your thoughts would be there. It'd be interesting dialogue to have whether or not you'd want to receive a phishing scam where there are no dire consequences, but it just gives you the ability to recognize, especially as they evolve over time, depending on the current economic situation or some current affairs, that just can help keep you abreast of the current scams that are people are falling for. Skimming technology is when fraudsters put devices on ATMs or gas station terminals or anywhere you'd end up using your card. And what they're able to do is read that magnetic strip to get your card information, and or they might put a device over the PIN pad to be able to get your PIN number and read that information as you enter it in. Here's a little image of what that could look like. And it would definitely clearly be on top of the device you're using and well hidden, but cards with chips have added protection, so that would be a way to thwart skimming, going inside. I mean, really taking a close look at the device you're using, and then in good light. So going to a ATM with good lighting or a gas station with good lighting would be a good recommendation. And then if it does happen, if you set up alerts where you're immediately alerted of activity in your account, and those are easy to turn on, then you can be more aware that if that does end up happening, you can get alerted as soon as it happens, as opposed to waiting for a transaction when it arrives on your statement. To my knowledge, contactless technology has not been compromised yet, but I'm sure that's coming soon as it gets adopted more and more. And then I think phone scams, fairly obvious. I think I talked about a few examples previously where you're being told that you won something, or you're in danger of something, or someone who important to you is in danger, and that fake sense of urgency is how they convince you that they need your account information to it's interesting how their approach. I've had customers call and kind of share with me some of their experiences with individuals they've worked with, and they can be very charismatic, or just have just the right amount or just the right information to convince you that there's someone that you can trust. And they've been doing it so long. They're so bold about their process that I think that confidence is what makes them so convincing. But by being on guard and knowing the tells and the signs that things aren't right, the easiest thing to do is hang up on these folks. And then the obvious one of looking over your shoulder. Just be aware of your surroundings and don't leave your card where it can be seen or taken, and cover your hands when you do your passwords. I think smartphones with the ability to take photographs, unknowingly, you never know, even though someone's not looking at you, if they're holding something in their hand, that could be a way that they could get your account information. So just being as discreet as you can is definitely the strategy there. This ties back to some of the email awareness, just ensuring you're when you go to a website and sometimes if you search for something in Google and something looks interesting and you go to a particular website, just because it was related to your search request, it could take you to a place where there's a lot of pop-ups, and these pop-ups can fake you into believing that now all of a sudden your computer's compromised, and the immediate thing you should to look at doing if you feel like someone somehow has access to your computer all of a sudden is just to unplug it or turn it off so that whatever they're trying to get access to is stopped right away. But just that awareness of what you're clicking on and what you receive in email, and turning on a junk mail folder will definitely help with minimizing access to this malware. The newest place where I'm seeing quite a bit of fraud is the virtual marketplace. So Craigslist was it's been around for such a long time, but it's more manual, and it's been where people have posted. It's been easy for folks to post scams where they could be offering a job or offering a good deal, and that starts the communication via email or through other communication apps. And then thereafter, as they build rapport and build your trust, the most common one I've seen in the past is where they'll send you a check, and they'll ask you to deposit the check and then send them funds back. And so previously it's been through Western Union, where you'll deposit the check and then take out some cash and then Western Union it away. And unfortunately that you can't get back. But the fraudsters got savvy to that. So they, instead of asking someone for cash back, because now the banker's more alert to what's happening there and the potential for fraud, they'll eliminate that part of the process and have you go with your debit card, purchase gift cards somewhere, and then send that information to them. And I think the grocery stores and the places where all those gift cards are sold have become more savvy, and so now they're turning to those cash transfer apps. And now with mobile deposit and cash transfer apps, the bankers and the storefronts are completely taken out of the equations. So it kind of makes this virtual marketplace a little scary for when the fraudsters want to take advantage, and there's no one who's been seeing this type of activity involved, that we're going to see more of those types of scams. I did mention that previously, like Facebook Marketplace, if you're using this social media, and social media is also another potential for compromise, but I'll get there in a second. And you're purchasing a product and you really are bought into working a transaction with someone, just keep in mind that when you're using these cash transfer applications, it's like handing someone cash, so you're not going to be able to get that money back. So these virtual marketplaces definitely are creating an opportunity for fraudsters to be able to take advantage of this new technology to send money instead of just through a credit card. So I did talk about how social security numbers get compromised, and your date of birth get compromised easily through social media apps too. I mean, Pete, your friends will wish you a happy birthday, and then I'm sure if they were able to track down when you graduated high school, they can definitely narrow down your date of birth, which can then easily be used to go impersonate you at all these different with your credit card company. And so this is a feature you can turn off, and perhaps you can take it another step further and put a fake one, so that if people were to wish you a happy birthday, that your at least your birthday's around that specific date and not that specific date that's listed. It'll fool people into getting your true date of birth. But it is best to just turn it off, and it is there. You can search this ability to turn off birthdays in all the social media outlets. So it's easy to Google and just follow the instructions, and you can hide your date of birth that way. So in the event you are compromised and you want to take some action, you definitely want to report your identity theft to the Federal Trade Commission, and then local police, and the Postal Service is important so that your mail doesn't get rerouted, and the credit bureau is going to help you with freezing your credit score. And then if you have been a victim of some of those data breaches, you're entitled to identity restoration services. So even if you didn't file a claim for when those things did happen, if it does happen to you now, that is something that you have access to. So some ideas that I use to protect myself. Whenever I write a check, I'm handing over someone my account number, the bank I do business with, my name and phone number. There's a lot of information that someone can use as part of your financial picture. And so I try to use it less and less because there are other devices that help better protect me and still allow me to accomplish this. But I mean, sometimes you do have to write a check and you want a paper trail for tracking things. And so what I do recommend is looking for cashier's checks. While they might cost something, and it all depends on what you're paying. And I think my case, I've used it for property taxes or paying a tax bill, but I want a paper trail so I can know with confidence that it's been negotiated and I can provide proof, as opposed to some of these other methods. I mean, it's fairly rare that I'm in that situation, but if you need to, then that is an alternative, is to cut a cashier's check as opposed to providing someone a personal check.
Here's a quick question. It says, when selling something on Craigslist, then is it a good protection to have them send you a cashier's check?
Cashier's checks can also be counterfeit. So it's not the going to be a fail-safe, but they are also verifiable. So, I mean, if someone sends you a cashier's check prior to releasing your product, whatever you're selling, it would be best to definitely verify the check and verify that it gets paid, because you can even put a stop payment depending on the age. Most cashier's checks offer a 90-day guarantee, so if you're within the 90 days, it'll be guaranteed to be honored. But it's always good to just verify that it's a real cashier's check prior to releasing your product.
And then another question, what about using Norton to protect your computer?
Antivirus software is definitely helpful in the detection of, because you visit so many sites and you receive so many emails, and there's just so much to keep track of, that it's helpful to have something in the background scanning your computer to make sure nothing is collecting your information or transmitting your information. I feel like depending on a lot of those services require that you subscribe and keep it current, and I think a lot of times they don't stay current because you're not keeping up or not paying attention that it's expired. So then you don't get the most recent or current downloads of virus software that it still leaves you open. But I mean, it's not a bad thing to have happening in the background. But and this isn't a fail-safe either, but I have a Mac computer, and it's only because I know that Apple controls the environment so much that it doesn't make me impervious, but I think it makes it very difficult for viruses and such to gain access to your computer. But if you have a Microsoft computer or even an Apple, but I don't have any virus protection on this computer. But I know when I had a Windows computer, it was definitely important that I had one. I think it is a good thing to have, but I don't think it's a fail-safe.
Couple more questions. Let's see. Oops. I lost it for a second there. Okay, it says, can you reiterate what you said about using PayPal versus using a credit card for purchases?
So PayPal actually has multiple functions. Like they're also a merchant service company. So you can have a PayPal account, have funds in that account, and then transfer funds via PayPal to a merchant. And that stays within their ecosystem. And then PayPal's been around long enough that they also have encryption, and there's safety and security in using PayPal specifically. But there are some recent cash apps that aren't as secure, haven't been around for as long, and don't have those security features. So you end up being a little more susceptible to, I'm trying to find the slide here, to being compromised. I mean, I would equate PayPal with using credit. I don't know if that answered the question.
I mean, I think so. And then another question was, can you check to see what's going on the dark web if they have your info? Is there a way to check that?
I mean, I think searching for your information in the dark web would probably require having access to some of those portals that are available. So I mean, I don't dabble in going to any of these particular websites or resources to be able to have access to it. But I'm sure if you hire a professional, they could do that for you or on your behalf to learn whether or not it's out there. I feel like working on the assumption that it's already out there, that if you turn on some of the features that allow you to get notified that something's happening, it allow you to stop it sooner than later. But yeah, that's a good question. I've never accessed or tried to access my information on the dark web, so I don't know.
And then one other question, you said something about junk mail when you were talking about fraud, but you didn't quite understand what you meant.
I mean, we get a lot of email, period, and turning on a junk mail filter will reroute mail that you're not really interested in looking at, and it's most likely a fraudulent email to a junk mail folder, so that it just automatically gets deleted and you don't accidentally look at it, open it, perhaps open an attachment and compromise yourself. You can, a lot of email services allow you to create filters that allow you to receive emails that you only truly want to receive. I mean, I have a really high junk mail filter so that you're only receiving emails that you expect and nothing that you've never requested. Somehow, I mean, so by turning on the junk mail filter and creating a high setting, I mean, your threshold's going to be dependent on your appetite for a lot of marketing, will hopefully prevent you from being able to inadvertently open a bad email and then compromise yourself.
Yeah, there's no other, that's the last question that I see so far.
Thank you. So taking advantage of online banking, I found a lot of customers, because they're not comfortable with the technology, choose not to enroll themselves. And where I see a potential for danger there is if they do somehow manage to get your information, they can set it up or enroll themselves as you behind your back and then have access to your account information. It would be very difficult. I think a lot of banks are set up so that it's preferable you do it in a branch or in a store with authentication processes. And then they use credit bureau questions to try to ID you as you enroll yourself. But without it being set up with a username and password already, that could be something that can happen behind your back. And even if you don't plan on using the service, which I recommend, so you can definitely see what's going on with your bank account, it's easy access and convenient. By not setting it up, I think it opens you up to that susceptibility. And then take advantage of the two-step factor authentication. Most banks have gone to that already. Just what that is you get a text with a code, and it's when you establish a relationship with the bank, your cell phone numbers are already programmed in, so any deviance to any other cell phone number can't happen. And so that just ensures that you're the one and you have to obviously have your access device or have your mobile device, but like two-step process ensures that it's you who's accessing the website. And then a lot of banks, credit card companies offer alerts. It's really easy to just turn on transaction alert, balance alert, just so you're immediately notified about activity. And it just makes it that much easier to get alerted if there is fraudulent activity. And then again, go paperless, prevent the your mail from being compromised. So you can always print out your bank statements, and a lot of times, like I accumulated bank statements for years, and eventually had to shred them. I rarely had an instance that I need to go back and refer to it. So it just ends up being one more thing that you have to keep safe at home, and then eventually destroy securely, so that it doesn't get into the wrong person's hands. Exploring bill pay. I find bill pay to convenient. It's one dashboard as opposed to going to several websites and then creating unique logins for all those websites. Most banks offer a bill pay service in a lot of cases for free. You can stay in control of how and when that money goes out versus when you go to, like, let's say Verizon's website and you put your bank information, Verizon can get compromised and you could lose I guess your account information get compromised, and or perhaps Verizon's also in control of when the funds come out of your account. So by centering it all through one filter at your bank's bill pay, you can stay in control. And a lot of times when that payment's made, in lieu of sending a check, a payee transfer is sent. So it goes directly to Verizon and gets directly applied to your bill, and your account information isn't floating around via the mail service by paper. I mean, it is transmitted, but it's encrypted, so it offers a secure way to ensure you can pay most of your bills. And then if you're, again, the tangible type where the bill helps you stay reminded of when to pay those bills, a lot of bill pay services offer alerts and reminders, text push notifications, so that you can stay on top of ensuring your bills stay paid. Debit cards and credit cards. They're very similar access devices. The debit card's tied directly to your checking account. You can choose debit or credit, which are just different authentication methods. And debit cards definitely help with staying out of debt, since you're just spending the cash that's in your bank account. The credit card you have to qualify for. It typically requires a signature, and your limit is the credit limit. And to avoid paying interest, you have to have it paid off within a certain amount of time, and then it's required for hotel and car rentals. So I guess depending on your school of thought, I mean, I definitely look to advise customers in avoiding accruing debt. So the debit card, if you're not good at managing that side of things, is to stick with a debit card. But if you are diligent about ensuring that all your bills are paid on time and you have the funds to make your purchases, you save for a purchase instead of borrowing and then paying off over a certain amount of time. There's a lot of benefits in going the credit card direction because let's see, the variety of purposes are like a lot of bills are set up through credit cards. So an example would be, I guess, an insurance payment or your cell phone bill, your internet bill can all be set up on a recurring basis through a credit card. And if you treat it just like it was a debit card, you can turn around and pay those bills right off. If not immediately, if you wanted to, because you have the ability to do that, you can pay it off every pay cycle or even every month, just depending on how you manage your funds. But in that way, it's treated just like a debit card. It's a card device that if it ever got compromised, it can be easily changed, and then you get some additional side benefits like you're building credit without by simply just paying your bills. And credit cards, some credit cards, depending on what you purchase, offer a variety of protection. I mean, it's also serving as an intermediary to your cash. I'd mentioned previously that if fraud took place on your debit card, then cash that was earmarked for particular important bills, access to that gets delayed until an investigation is completed. Where on a credit card, if you dispute a charge, you're not responsible for paying that charge until the end of the investigation. In a lot of cases, it is in your favor, but in the meantime, you're not requiring to take cash that was earmarked for a particular bill and pay that purchase off. So that has its that's one of its benefits. If you get a card with travel benefits, a lot of times if you make a purchase with a credit card, there's some travel insurance that'll help with perhaps travel delays, or I think some offer like $500 towards hotel or toiletries, etc. if there was some kind of issue with your travel experience. And some credit cards offer purchase protection, where if your purchase gets stolen or there's damage to it, and if it's reported within 30 days, you can get up to $500 back from that particular situation just by using that credit card with that particular protection. So those are the kind of key differences between the benefits for a credit card and debit card.
There is a question. What about the merchants? Do they prefer cash or debit over credit due to fees that they have to pay?
Merchants do pay fees for accepting credit cards. I mean, there's not a fee for taking cash, obviously, but the fee can depend on the card that's used, and then the better like rewards you get for the card ends up being something that's passed along to the merchant, so it costs them a little more money for that card being used. I think a lot of times merchants, bigger merchants, I would imagine, probably add some markup to absorb some of those fees, where some of your smaller local merchants aren't in that position. And I think consumers do end up spending more money when they choose a card, because they're not carrying as much cash as needed for a particular purchase, and that could work out to the merchant's benefit if the purchase average purchase amount goes up if a card's being used.
Is there a fee for the merchants if they accept debit cards?
There is a small transaction fee. So the debit card has the Visa logo or the MasterCard logo attached, and that is the fee that they're paying for. So while a debit card with the Visa logo is going to be cheaper than a credit card with rewards with the Visa logo, it is going to be more beneficial for a merchant for debit card purchases, because they're definitely less of a cost to the merchant for using it. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
And then, so the credit card itself is that access device. And if you can hide that credit card when doing your transaction, so it's not, and I think I talked about this earlier, it's not communicated to the merchant, that can also minimize your potential for compromise when these merchant companies get breached. And then, yeah, just reserve these cash transfer apps to trusted recipients, family and friends. In my case, I use it for a nonprofit organization, but using these services with strangers definitely opens you up to risk. Okay, I'm not sure how much more time I have.
Well, real quick before you move on, are there fees for those NFCs as well?
There's not, no. Apple does not charge a fee for using your credit card through the app.
Like PayPal does, and Zelle and Venmo, do they charge fees?
So an example for Venmo, there's no fee to transfer the funds, but the money can sit at Venmo for you to use for other Venmo purchases. You can transfer the money to your bank account for free with a delay, so it can take it 2 to 3 days. But if you need immediate access to it, that is where they assess a percentage fee, and that's where it could cost you additional money.
Yeah. Thanks.
So cryptocurrency has definitely been an interesting form of payment these past couple of years. So, I mean, it's decentralized currency, so it's not tied to any particular government or economy. From what I've seen, its value is simply derived from the supply and demand of the currency itself. I mean, to operate in the cryptocurrency world, there's definitely you can be anonymous, so you don't have to necessarily have to have an identity of a real person. You create a profile like you would any profile you can online, and then assign yourself these private keys, which is like essentially a password to be able to transmit the currency across the web. But I think that the fact, I mean, what people do like about it is that it's decentralized, so it's gonna not be affected by the value of cash, which is, I mean, there's so many factors that go into how monetary policy can affect the value of the dollar. I mean, it's interesting that the cryptocurrency is valued by the standard currency, but I guess it runs the option of not having to be, and it could be it's just so ethereal that I find it hard that I think society to like look to it as a way to exchange goods and services for something of value. Another I guess advantage that cryptocurrency does offer is the blockchain. It's a recording system that cannot be compromised because there's so many, because it's open source and so many computers are tied into this blockchain, and it's amazing how much is happening all at the same time. As opposed to like one central file that someone can change some information on. It's a file that's on like thousands and millions of computers that if someone were to try to change information on, it would be invalidated because it doesn't match what's on all the on the blockchain essentially. So I'm going to do my best to explain this blockchain. So Bitcoin is the most common cryptocurrency, but there's Ether, Libra, Ripple, Litecoin, Tether, Monero, Binance. It's interesting how so many more types of currencies are now available with their own value. Access to one of these Bitcoins started with mining, but can now be available on certain stock exchanges. You can exchange it for goods and services. And the way I begin with understanding how I'm going to like it, if I were interested in using this as currency, is to kind of figure out how it is kept safe, and then what a transaction looks like. So, so if I were to get a Bitcoin, how would I keep it? And essentially, there are companies that have created ways to maintain your private key and your blockchain records, which is what you need to maintain Bitcoin. And so they have created an actual physical paper wallet, which is like a QR code which has the code of your encryption key or your private key, and then your blockchain. But if someone were to get that piece of paper, then they would have access to your wallet. And then you'd be stored on the cloud, which definitely makes you susceptible to hackers. And then you could also keep it on physical hardware, depending on how much memory it takes, you could put it on a USB key or keep it on your computer. And what people have done, because Bitcoin has been around for quite some time, is if you end up getting Bitcoin and it's saved on hardware, people can search through your hardware and find your Bitcoin wallet or the information that's needed, like your private key in the blockchain at the time, to then have access to that particular Bitcoin. So trying to explain like how a transaction works is fairly complex, but I'm going to try to keep it high level. So there's two parties involved in the transfer of a Bitcoin, and each of them have their private key, and there's a public key that they've created that they put out or broadcast to the computers that are called nodes, that are all keeping track of this blockchain. And so when they initiate the transaction, one with the private key to release the Bitcoin and the other to take it in, they use these cryptographic hash functions to create a digest, is what they call it, or a hash value, as a validation of that transaction, which is, I guess, what ends up being a block within the ledger. And so after it's released or broadcast to the world, a network of nodes validates the transaction, and what they're looking to do is using their cryptographic hash function is, I guess, currency specific. They use a specific algorithm to determine, to break down an input into a fixed output. And these nodes are all using a lot of computer technology and some guesswork to try to guess what will create that that fixed hash or that fixed digest. And once it's validated, and the first to do it actually can earn some Bitcoin as part of the fee of the transaction, and that has the ability to create a Bitcoin or even a fraction of a Bitcoin. But then after having validated that block, it then gets added to the blockchain, or the ledger of all the data of all the transactions that have taken place in the transactions of Bitcoin. And then that blockchain because it's then broadcast to all the nodes, is what people use moving forward for the next transaction. It definitely takes a lot of power, and a lot of Bitcoin mining companies have rows and rows and rows of computers and computing power to be the first to mine for Bitcoin, because there's a lot of value in amassing it. But the fact that it needs so much computational power, I guess this is in managing Bitcoin, it's what makes it far-fetched for me to be able to I mean, manage my Bitcoin if I were to have, if I were to amass some and use it as a currency. In order to prove that you have Bitcoin, you have to be able to store the blockchain, which by now I'm sure is immense. And so it just seems, and there are services that will help you with that, but it just seems just so ethereal, like I said, in being able to think about it as a mode of currency. And then another turnoff for me is that it's gotten so volatile. You can see that over time, and then just until recently, that it's definitely spiked up in value, and it's currently sitting at around $11,000 dollars as a single Bitcoin. But it could be an interesting investment. You can see there's an upward trend, and the more it gets used, I think that the higher it will be in value. But definitely makes for an interesting investment.
There are a couple questions. Increased numbers of companies are using blockchain technology for commercial transactions and contracts. Are banks doing this? And has Bitcoin been hacked?
We aren't doing it yet, but I know proof of work technology where that ability to break down a cryptographic hash function and come up with the same result takes a lot of computing power, and I think it definitely throttles like the immediacy of hacking technology. So it's just something that takes a lot of computational power that slows things down. I mean, there are, like any message, whether it be a financial transaction or any, I guess, attachment to this blockchain function is showing, I guess, promise when it comes to deterring fraud and establishing, I guess, genuine transactions. And I could see that being something that happens down the road, but it's not something that I'm seeing and that we're facilitating at the bank at the moment. So according to blockchain technology, Bitcoins cannot be hacked. But what could be hacked is your private key. And so if someone does get access to your, which is a password essentially, then that would be a point of compromise. But if someone were to try to step into one of these blocks, and I guess they have an example of double pay. I give someone a Bitcoin, that transaction gets out there, and then I turn around and try to get the same Bitcoin to someone else. So many computers are working on making sure that happens faster than the second one, that it's impossible for there to be a fork in the blockchain, because the transaction gets verified in such a time that it already gets added to that blockchain that it invalidates the second one. So. Any other questions?
It's just a question about sharing your slides.
Sure, I'd be happy to share my slides. Should I get them to you, Kim, or?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, happy to.
Then people who are interested in them should contact Kim and let her know that they'd like a copy. Is that correct, Kim?
Yes, OLLI at Humboldt.edu.
Fabulous. AJ, this was fantastic, and what a wealth of information you've provided. We thank you ever so much. This has been wonderful. When I asked you to do this, I had no idea how much work would be involved, and I think you spent a lot of time doing it, and we really appreciate it. It was very full of great information. So thanks from all of us. Hopefully we can avoid the pitfalls you've laid out and figure out which way to go in the future, because it's complicated.
It is.
And we're not always quick to respond with the options that are available if we're not comfortable with them. I did want to mention one thing. You can use electronic checks, for example, when you're signing up for an OLLI course. and you don't have to pay for it with a credit card. You can opt for an electronic check as long as you have your routing number and your account number. So that's another option you have rather than writing a personal check to OLLI. And meantime, I want to say next week we are going to have Dr. Ann Lindsay, president of the Life Care Humboldt Board of Directors, talking about aging well and Life Care Humboldt. Learn about the process being made on establishing our own nonprofit senior life plan community focused on active, mindful, engaged aging in Humboldt County. You'll have an opportunity to submit your design preferences for that community. They've been engaged in that for a number of times. She used to be our health officer here and went down to, I think, what was it, Stanford, to design their program. So she's very experienced and they have lots of ideas. And if you want to learn about that, come visit. When she did this in person last January, I think we had 160 people there. We had a chair deficit. So thanks so much. Thank you again, AJ, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
I have a question.
Yeah?
Do you record all of your the Monday presentations?
We try and record them all, and we are just now getting caught up. I shared with AJ before we got started. You can find some of the presentations on the OLLI website in the brown bag archives. And we
Okay.
are going back and trying to get those past presentations up on our website. So we hope that this presentation will be up in the next couple of days.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks, AJ. We really appreciate your presentation and all the amazing information that you shared with us. It's a lot.
Thanks for having me. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So we
AJ.